Jerry, hello. Welcome back to Look Who's Chalking, Week 11. I once in a while, I have to give an ugly... I mean, you still say hello. You have to do that every once in a while. At least I do. It's not even the impression. Just, I don't know. Uncle Leo will always be somewhat in my head when introducing myself to somebody.
Fair enough.
But Gary, hello.
Hello, Andrew. How are you?
I'm happy to see that your hot streak has rolled on. You finished second place in which tournament was this?
So this is the Juke, which is one of the better.
Before you tell us about it, I hate these names. You have the chance to name these tournaments anything.
What would you go with?
And you go with the Flea Flicker, the Juke, the Slant. No, where's the Don Corleone? It should sound like a sandwich menu. That's what these tournaments should sound like. Oh, $15? Sunday sweatpants. The Sunday sweatpants special.
I would just name them after the most absurd former football players that maybe had one fantasy relevant week in their entire life. So you have the Jonas Gray, the Trunk Candidate, just all over the place, wherever you can find them. You got the Brandon Stokely's full this week. Oh my God, it's crazy.
The Kevin Ogletree.
yeah, there you go. The Ogletree's the Millie maker this week. Oh God.
So you finished second in the one more time. Which one?
The Juke.
Okay. The 2 feet in bounds.
The Juke is a good one. A lot of people play the Power Sweep, which is a 3 max 150.
Oh, that's me.
Which is a great one.
That's me. I'm all about that.
This is a lower field, obviously lower top prize, but it's like 300 people, 444 3 max. So $444 per entry, 3 max.
Oof.
And you win, I think, like 30 grand up top. It depends on the week. Sometimes it's 50, sometimes it's 30, sometimes it's 20. So I came in second in that one for 10, which I was happy with, obviously. And just listen, I think I've had 4 out of 10 winning weeks, which, that's huge. 40% to actually make money as a tournament player, I'm pretty happy about. So
it's unbelievable. Right now you're going through one of those streaks, and I don't expect the DFS fantasy football community to be able to understand what I'm about to say. Oh, they're going to hate me for this one. But when I would go out, and people were feeling me, it would go from this, my God, I can't buy a bucket out here, to this girl's talking to me. Now this one's talking to me. This one's hitting me up. It's like a parlay that all avalanches at once. And quite honestly, I like it that way. Yeah. I don't want that consistent someone talks to me. I want to drown in attention coming from all corners, and then I want to go dry, because you can't appreciate good weather without some bad weather. So let's take things forward now.
You ride the wave.
Oh, absolutely.
And believe me, when I get cold, I'll ride the ice, and it'll be there, and I'll be out there on the iceberg. I'll be the Titanic going down with the ship. But for now I'm riding the wave, and it's we'll see how long we can keep it going.
Perfect. For me, as always, like I said, I'm enjoying these bye weeks because I can see the field. It was another decent week for me. I was all about Stevenson on the Patriots, simply because not only was he going to get a large majority of the work, because I'm never worried about Brandon Bolden. He's the slowest guy I've ever seen in my life. But I knew that the chalkiest play of the week was the running back on the other side, which essentially guaranteed me a low percentage. And he ended up being like 3% owned in most of the tournaments that I played. So remember that when we go forward into potential plays this week.
Yep.
So now this week, coming up week 11 here, we got one game tonight, but obviously we just focus on the Sunday games, the 1s and 4s that are part of the main slate. And there's one that jumps off the page. We used to talk about putting on your regular guy hat and seeing what a regular guy would look at this slate and see. It's obviously Kansas City hosting Dallas. Both of them coming off of big spots where they looked great, and especially Mahomes' primetime spot. They were throwing touchdowns to the running backs. Kelsey did good. Hill did good, leaving a great taste in everyone's mouth. Same thing with Dallas, laying an absolute beatdown. Now you got two potential, juggernauts in people's mind going against each other. Every single person is going to have pieces and chunks from this game.
Yep.
And I guess, unless you want to take that huge risk of saying, you know what, I'll die on this hill because I know if it misses, I'm just swimming in money. But the majority of people have to have some sort of stake in this game.
Yeah, we get a few matchups like this a year, right? And like some of them, me and you look at them like, hey, we can kind of see it going the other way. There's only so few that like seem to be handcrafted by the fantasy gods as true, just ridiculously good environments. And it's just very hard not to look at this one that way, especially with what is at least looking like the Chiefs are. Maybe they're not fully back to the Chiefs of old, but they're 80% there, it seems like, from the last couple of weeks. So, you know, and it's in case
the fantasy and the 4 p.m. fantasy ruckus factor.
Right, of course. Yep. And you can literally make an argument for every single major fantasy asset in this game. You can. So it's
well, I guess let's take a look at some of these options then. Probably with the most popular after a primetime game, throwing all those touchdowns, 400 yards. People are going to be loving themselves some Patrick Mahomes at home.
Yep. They are, and you know, we know this Dallas defense is actually pretty good this year. You know, they scored 23 points last week or whatever it was, and you know, can they attempt to slow down Mahomes? We kind of seen what the recipe is. You get pressure up the middle, you get the cover two, you can kind of slow him down, but he at least looks more like himself. The fact that they're at home is a big deal for this matchup. And, you know, I don't know necessarily if either guy has a higher ceiling, because if the Chiefs are able to keep their foot on the gas, I think Dak's ceiling is at almost the exact same place that Mahomes is. But I think when you're looking at just straight up game stacks, yeah, it's hard not to do better than Patrick Mahomes this week. It really is.
Yeah, and now I think Hartman has finally fallen out of that point where you're even throwing him in for a double, which means you're looking at 3 players, Williams, Hill, and Kelsey. And after that kind of performance by Williams, and my thought would be they hold out Hilaire one more week because they got the bye. There's just no need to rush him back, especially with Williams playing so well. So you got him, Kelsey, Hill.
So Hartman's like falling out. You're 100% right. Like, I think he was playing like 80% of snaps, and he's gone all the way down to like whatever he played last week, 30 or 40 or something like that. It looks like they brought up Byron Pringle as the number 2 receiver. So like I think he went 446 and 1 last week.
Right.
And if you're dart throwing a double, I think he's just from what we know, the small sample that we have with them demoting Hartman and bringing up Pringle, I guess Pringle's the guy you do it with. Or if you want to throw in, if we know for sure CEH is not playing, we saw what Darrell Williams did through the air. I'm totally cool using Darrell Williams in doubles as well. If they're both playing, I don't want any part of that running back group, I don't think.
Oh, but, definitely. And on the other side, when you look at Dak, all you have to really go from is the first half of the last game, or I guess the first 3 quarters, because then CeeDee kind of sat out, and then the first half of the Tampa Bay game. I mean, he kind of spreads that ball around to whoever's open. It's not like you can look at Gallup, Cooper, Lamb, and say, "Oh, I bet Lamb, he could go 4 for 45 this week." You know, if he gets extra attention towards him. We also don't know if maybe he was a little injured or limited or something like that. But now Gallup has a full week under his belt, no setbacks, anything like that. He assumed his major role as that almost, you know, borderline every down receiver. So I think you could use any of those guys.
Yeah,
you could use
and Schultz.
all of them, any mix of them, and Schultz as well.
Yeah. So Lamb supposedly in that second half got a Charlie horse in his elbow, which, yeah, I don't know. But supposedly it is supposed to be fully recovered for this week. I mean, we saw him go absolutely berserk in the first half. Assuming he's in he's feeling good. Like, I think he's starting to really separate himself from Cooper. You mix that with the fact that early ownership has him only around like 5 to 7% right now. If you can afford it, I get all these stacks are going to be expensive. Whether you go Mahomes and Kelsey with Lamb, or whether you go Dak and Lamb and, you know, Hill or Kelsey or whatever, it's expensive. But if you can afford it, and at that point, we'll talk about strategies on actual roster.
Yeah, just to remind people, like, yes, Lamb was considerably more expensive than the other Dallas guys last week, which is why you want to use him, because you're getting the guy who people aren't playing with the quarterback that they are, and you could really separate yourself. Because, you know, your average person, like, well, I mean, I'm going to go with Gallup. He's only 4,000. That, of course, people are thinking that.
Yep.
Nobody wants to pay 7,000 for Lamb, but you do it to get away from everybody.
And Lamb is 1,400 more than Cooper this week. So he's 7,600, which I think is going to keep his ownership down. That's my favorite player from the Cowboys side. There's just no doubt. Like, I think he is so clearly, has the highest upside values. Now, obviously, Cooper's always that red zone threat, depending on game script, Cooper can get going. And I like Amari just fine. But Lamb, last 5 games, 8.2 targets, 92.4 yards, and a touchdown per game. So he's averaging basically 8 for 93 and a touchdown in 5 straight games as an average. I mean, that's good. That's good stuff. He's surefire wide receiver 1.
Basically, there are few players in this game that are hard not to like.
Yep.
Like it's just hard not to like.
Totally.
And many of the players.
And I mentioned both tight ends, like both teams. So the Chiefs have given up the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends. The Cowboys have given up the 11th most fantasy points to tight end. And Travis Kelce over the last 2 weeks really looks. What do you say? I got my swagger back. He really looks.
Yeah.
He really looks like he does have his swagger back. So
fucking guy.
Maybe it's the chalky play to go. I mean, I don't think it really is because you look at Lamb's ownership. But my favorite pieces are I'm good with either quarterback are Lamb and Kelce in this spot. Cooper just a little bit higher variance. I like Gallup for doubles. I like Schultz for doubles. I like Pringle for doubles. Fine. And then Tyreek Hill is the one we have to talk about here. Let's see what his ownership's coming in at because
it's going to be high. He's in a permanent high now.
Right.
He doesn't not come off that top 4.
You're right.
Ownership.
So he's right now he's coming through as the 3rd highest guy on the slate. Only Devontae Adams and AJ Dillon above him, which makes sense. We'll talk about that game in a minute. But so 2 things, and this is the reason that I'm so much more into Kelce. Ownership. And I don't think Trayvon Diggs can slow down Tyreek Hill. They're just completely different types of style and size of players. Yet he's the best cornerback in the league this year, pretty much, right? So, like, if you're just looking for a tiebreaker, because you're probably not getting a double in of Hill and Kelce unless you're going complete stars and scrubs, which is going to win this week, I'm telling you, in all likelihood. But if you are, if you're just looking for a reason to pick one or the other, that's the reason right there for me. You're going to get double the ownership on Hill, and more expensive and a worse matchup.
I was going to say this week, I should have said this at the top. But it looks like one of those situations. You're trying to construct a roster. You're trying, and you always find, oh my God, I am short. I'm short, and you have to scrounge. It's a scrounger's week because so many of the plays that you really want to play, you really need to play, or plays that you got to get in there to separate yourself from the pack. Many times you always say, "Oh, okay, no worries. I can dink and dunk with this game with a couple of guys who are 4,200." Not so much the case this week. No. If you go down there, you're taking a real gamble. So that's something that I noticed about this week.
Yep.
You had just mentioned the highest potential played player in AJ Dillon, correct?
Yep.
So why don't we take a quick peek at that game? That's anytime you get.
Yeah, let's
you
do
get
that.
Vikings, especially Vikings at home, where they always have more of a chance to get the Packers, and it always makes it more a better game, in my opinion, because you always have the chance of a Packers rout at Lambeau. But now that those games in Minnesota, I really think that they do provide that kind of chance for potentially a back and forth. And you're looking at Jefferson, who's just absolutely, looked unbelievable last week. Dalvin Cook, who we talked about, he was kind of my men's warehouse. He was my men's warehouse because he was so expensive, meaning people wouldn't want to put it in there. And he hasn't been as surefire of a thing as he was last year. And now he's coming off 125 without a touchdown or 135 without a touchdown. Last week almost got to 100, over 100 total with the touchdown. I'm liking him. Go ahead.
No, say, and who had 2 touchdowns right at the goal line that could have been Dalvin Cook. Tyler Conklin had 2 for 11 and 2. So
yes, yeah.
I mean, very unlucky.
Yeah,
there.
And what I said about Stevenson last week, or I'm sorry, what I said about Stevenson, me playing him last week because I knew everyone was on Johnson. Everybody's going to be on AJ Dillon. Everybody. You get yourself some Dalvin Cook, who had 200 yards against this Packers team last week.
Yep.
Okay, you want to separate yourself from the pack? I know, it's awful. You got to pay $8,000 for this guy. However, if he has a monster day and, Dillon, who is one of those big guys who could look like one of those guys who goes for a bunch of 3 yards and dust if it's not really, if the offensive line ain't really, opening it up for him. I know he's looked very good lately, but it's not like he's going to get those Aaron Jones 7 catches or something like that. He's just not that type of player. You can see it. They can try to get some screens for him, but Aaron Jones is like a receiver out there, a true receiver running wheel routes deep down the field. You're not going to get that from Dillon, but with Cook, you can get an absolutely massive game, and he's going to be a low percentage. And I'm just a guy theorizing, but that would be my take on it.
I agree with you, and let's just use this to take it one step further with what you were talking about with roster construction, because this week, and I said this to you before we went on, like on the surface, it seems very clear cut. Right, there's like 4 quarterback spend up options. We just spoke about 2 of them in the other game. I think you can make an argument for Rodgers in this game. And there's Lamar and Josh Allen. We'll talk about both those guys. And then in my opinion, there's really only one real spend down option at quarterback. If you really want to go mid tier with Hurts, you can look at it. Not that interested personally. You go to Tua because the Jets defense has been a complete funnel. Every single game that they've done has gone over, and we'll talk about that when we get there. So he's the only spend on option to me. So you're really looking at 4 or 5 high spend quarterbacks. So at that point, you're already putting a lot of money into your game stack because you have a high price quarterback that has high price targets, right? So we talked about all the Dallas KC guys. If we went Rodgers, if in any Rodgers lineups I use, I will lock button him with Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams can get there without Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers cannot get there without Devontae Adams, right? So done, locked. Okay, so you're already putting a lot of money into that stack. That's going to be your case this week. So you're end up just naturally, you're spending a lot of money at receiver. You take that into account, add that up with the fact that the running back high end this week isn't that appealing. These guys aren't in fantastic matchups. McCaffrey's got Washington. That's the one spot that against their defense that they're decent against the ground now. C-Mac's a different beast. Play C-Mac with confidence this week. He'll be fine. Jonathan Taylor's against Buffalo. This matchup for Dalvin's good, not great, but I'm with you. I like Dalvin. Kamara's in a good spot if he plays against Philly because they just get so beat in the middle of the field. So if he can get his 8 or 9 catches, I think he's in a good spot. Chubb against Detroit is in a good spot, but no, your lineups aren't going to allow you to play 2 of those guys. But one way you can get different is assuring you get one guy over 7,000. So basically Swift and up, if you look at the thing, is a way you can get very different because a lot of people are going to be in that A.J. Dillon tier this week. A.J. Dillon, James Conner, Michael Carter, Myles Gaskin. Guys that I like, actually. James Robinson's around that range because that's what's going to fit. And their ceilings aren't that different than the high end at running back this week because they're in good matchups and very secure roles. So,
Gary, I got good news for you, buddy. I'm going to show you how you can do it once our lineups are revealed.
Yeah, and you should. And I haven't kind of started picking out my high stakes, hand build lineups yet, but I know for sure I'm going to try to be getting flipping the build, if you will, trying to get some high price running backs, mid price receivers, where everyone's going to be doing the other way around. It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard balance to strike, but I think if you're able to figure it out, get some Dalvin in there, get some McCaffrey in there. I like Swift. I like Mixon. We'll get to some of these guys, but it's I think that's where you're looking.
Buffalo hosting Indianapolis. They've really played pretty well the last 6 weeks. Even, their loss or 2 against the Titans and Ravens by a hair. They're a pretty good team. And now they're going to Buffalo. Buffalo hasn't played a good team in a while. I'm always of the belief that guys like Josh Allen get up more for those games.
Yeah.
And then, which is why he threw a donut in Jacksonville. And then last week, against the Jets, I don't even know how well you have to play to have a good day against them. How you feeling, Josh Allen, against Indy at home?
Yeah, and you take all of that into account with the fact that the Colts have not been a good defense against the pass, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these Colts games have been playing up because their offense has been very solid. Jonathan Taylor's been great, but they do allow a lot of points through the air on them. So I love Josh Allen this week. The problem is, and they're letting up the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks. The Colts are.
Yeah.
So
and what you said about Adams, not to the fullest extent, but with Beasley kind of hurting from what I saw, and like Knox just coming back, he kind of has to be with Diggs.
Yeah,
right
most
now.
of the time he's got to be with Diggs, and there's the only slight difference is, he does spread it around way more than Rodgers does.
Yeah.
So like, I think especially if Beasley doesn't go, Sanders at 5,300 is going to be one of my favorite plays of the week. I don't think people are really going there after a couple down weeks for him. Gabe Davis is going to get right back in that mix if Beasley doesn't go, and I love him for doubles. Knox will probably get flown under the radar a little bit because he's still 4,000. A little expensive for that kind of like touchdown or bust tight end type. But again, I talk about liking to correlate my cheap or like punt tight ends in this.
But man, if Allen's going to go off though, he's not going to go off with those other guys. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, I mean, we've seen it. Diggs, we just saw Diggs' first best game of the year, right? We saw some Beasley Sanders 2 touchdown games where him and Allen were perfect together. I think week 5 or whatever that was. So,
no, but if they were all healthy, like if Beasley was fully healthy and Sanders, then yeah. But I'm only saying in the event that Knox just came back and Beasley, if he doesn't play.
Yeah, I love Diggs is one of my favorite plays of the week.
Yeah.
Like I will almost be upset if I have Allen lineups that don't have Diggs, but I'm just slightly afraid to lock button them together the same way I am with Adams and Rodgers.
Yeah, of course,
is such a clear-cut thing.
But
Honestly, it's probably an okay move. He had 13 targets last week, 8 for 162 and 1.
It's Diggs. Coming now.
I think the second half of the season for Diggs is about to what we saw last year. So and I'm curious on his ownership right now because
it's gonna. I bet you. People, they're not quick changers. I bet you it's not as high as you'd think.
Let's see.
Early season Diggs, it kept being high no matter what. He messed up. Now it's cemented in people's mind. I'm not trusting him.
It's not bad.
People are ogres. People just go through they have delayed thought. They're orcs. They can't think quickly on the fly. I am the most patronizing, insulting individual, but I'm sorry. I'm driving on the highway and somebody goes slow. They don't realize everyone has to swerve around them, and it's the same type of thing with these with these price adjusted updaters.
Yeah. We had ETR have Diggs at 9.6% owned right now, which sign me up. I'll be 25%, right? Like but again, once you're doing that, say you have 25% Diggs. Half of those lineups probably have Josh Allen. You want to be around 12% Josh Allen probably if you're MMEing like I am. And then the rest of your build is going to be stretched pretty thin. You have one of the most expensive receivers and the most expensive quarterback.
Yeah,
so it's just it's tough, man. It's tough. That said, the other thing that makes this game tough is, and the good thing about this is with the Bills, a lot of times Josh Allen does not need a run back. But I do think in this matchup, given the Colts are a pretty good team, you might want to run back more often than you might usually.
Could I guess?
With Josh
Could I
Allen.
guess?
I don't know. That's what I want to ask you. You can make arguments. You can make arguments like.
Oh no, I'm not going to make an argument. I'm going to tell you what to do.
Go for it.
How do you like that? So this is a guy in their previous matchups you haven't heard from a lot because it's exactly what you'd expect. Nyheim Hines, who Gary many times said that's a millionaire guy. Well, when they play a team who's not that great that they could beat the crap out of and who they have a lead on, you're going to see more of the big back. It's no different than Gibson. It's no different than Jacobs. They're the type of teams when they're close, you're going to see their lead guy more. But then if they're trailing, especially by more than 5, 7, more than 2 scores, that's when you're going to see that little scat back on there. And this is a Nyheim Hines 4,600. That will save you so much money, because you're not running Pittman out there against Tre'Davious White. You're not running Taylor because the odds are if Taylor's killing it, he's milked a lot of clock with the running. And then really is Diggs and Allen going to go up? Maybe. I would guess not. If Diggs and Allen are going off, then I believe the way to go back on the other side is Nyheim Hines.
I like that a lot. Very, very smart, sharp play. My only hesitancies with Hines are his role. While Taylor's been having this mega breakout, his role has really dwindled. So he has only handled 10 touches or fewer for 7 straight games. But here's the thing. The Bills have allowed the 5th
most receptions?
No. Yeah, I guess they've allowed the 5th fewest receiving yards to running back. So it's a little tough, but I will say if you got to hope that game script is going in his direction, and either way, whether Hines or Taylor,
if you do the Allen stack and it hit, if it doesn't hit, there goes your lineup.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm with you.
But if it does hit,
how
about this? What if I said to you? What if I told you that if I guaranteed you that Diggs and Allen went off, and I said to you, what are Hines' numbers? If I guaranteed you they went off, you'd think, well, he probably has a decent day because they're trying to play catch up.
Yep.
So, remember, if you're investing that money in Diggs and Allen, it means that if it doesn't hit, who gives a shit if Hines doesn't go off? You flush that toilet down the roster.
Yep.
You don't want to be one of those lingerers by the cash line.
No, I'm with you.
It's
a great call. It's a great call. So he's a bring back option. If you want to do something that literally no one's going to do, and you'll have to figure out the scrubs that you want to play from that point. You could put Taylor in there, who, as we've talked about, does not have a game under 21 points since week 3, and even in some of these competitive environments. Baltimore, he scored 35 points. Tennessee was that 34-1 game. He scored 23 points. And you put that with the fact that he's getting like 5+ targets every week. He had 6 catches on 8 targets last week. So yeah. I agree with you though. If it gets 2 scores or more, I think we see Hines on the field more than we have in a long time. So you're going to, you have that. But if you try to go Allen, Diggs, and Taylor, and those are your spend up options, you have a completely different game stack than many people do have. So it's something to think about. And then Pittman, Pittman would be the guy. And I think you're finally going to get Pittman at a lower ownership than we've been getting, because he's been staying right in that like low 6K range in price, which has been making him really chalky in most weeks. But I think people see the Buffalo matchup. They're scared off. He's only coming through at 4% owned right now. That's the guy I'm looking to. They're going to have to throw the ball. I get Tre'Davious White. I get all that. But I think Pittman's just fine when you're finally getting him on a week where no one's playing him. So,
okay. How about we take a quick look at, I believe you wanted to mention that Jets game.
There's a lot there.
I'll let you kind of take it because I don't like it. I don't like it.
Let me tell you this. So right now, the over-under on that game is 44.5. I will be absolutely shocked if it does not go over. And it's going to be one of my favorite bets.
I won't be.
Listen to this. Both defenses are just garbage, but the Jets are historically bad. They've given up 45 points in 2 straight games. Most of their games have gone over 70 points, like in 3 of the last 4 or 4 of the last 5, 54-13, 34-1, 45-30, 45-17. They give up points like no one else does. When you take that into account, with the Dolphins defense is bad, Tua actually looked okay last week. And a lot of these players in this game fit construction super, super well. Gaskin's going to be a little chalky, which scares me, but his efficiency has not been there, but he has one of the most secure roles in the NFL right now. He's getting 91% of running back snaps. Since Malcolm Brown's gone down, that guy's been on the field all the time.
I think you're taking the bait, my man. I'm telling you.
Why is it taking the bait? These guys can't score. These guys can't stop.
I'm going to explain to you. It is when trash meets trash, it's never treasure. What you get are 2 teams who are actually bad, and then they aren't able to pull away like a good team does. So what you get then is more conservative play calling, and it just it literally like funnels downward instantly. Unless you get that catalyst, then it doesn't spring the Jets to try to play catch up like they did against Buffalo, Buffalo last week, and then Indianapolis the week before that. And Tua in a 0-0 game, he's not just going to march down that field and score, and that's what you need. You're going to get a field goal, which is going to keep the Jets' offense conservative. It's just you need the Jets to take a beating so that they do dump downs to the running back and then take short passes to Crowder and stuff like that. This is the kind of environment that's actually going to be crap. It's going to be 13-6 at halftime. Mark my words. Mark my words. I'm a sniffer. You want a sniff? That's a sniff.
Fair enough.
Establish the sniff, my company.
It's a very fair argument. I could see it going that way. I'm just giving Tua a little bit more credit right now. Like every time he's been on the field this year, for the most part, he's been pretty good. So I think he'll be able to score points against the Jets, which is all you really need for this game environment to go over.
He's got the Eli Manning tired arm, and he's a young guy. But
as you said, I don't know if there's drilling going on right below me in my apartment. It's been happening for weeks. It's ridiculous. But as you mentioned, I know, and here we are again.
Last week when those horns came and tried to tell you, Roethlisberger,
Can you hear it? You hear
I just heard a quick drill, and that's exactly what's going to happen to your lineup. So guys, they're just going to fucking get drilled by this game.
If you believe in signs in the universe talking to you, listen to Andy. Don't listen to me.
How about this, Gary? Just tell. So you like Gaskin?
Yeah, I like Gaskin. I like Waddle. I like Gesicki. I like Carter. All those guys are going to draw some sort of ownership. I think Crowder's actually okay too. And then but again, I'm doing max 1 of each guy unless I'm throwing 2 in my build yet, which I have not decided. Then I'll do up to 2 or 3 Dolphins. But I think for mini correlation in the spots where you're going to need these cheaper guys, I won't go Gaskin and Carter just because there's too much combined ownership there. But Carter with Waddle, I think is good. Carter with Gesicki, I think is good. Gaskin by himself, I think is a fine play. The Jets have been historically bad against running backs right now, like really, really bad. And we've seen Gaskin do it already this year. If I'm eating chalk at running back this week, I'm probably looking at Gaskin or A.J. Dillon. So,
all right, a couple of quick hitters. Tennessee and Cleveland are both right behind Buffalo in terms of projected points for the day. because they're playing Houston and Detroit, respectively. They're double-digit favorites, which means there are players in that game. I'm telling you something. You want to, like we said, there's so many high-priced guys. Another way to stick out, I'll guarantee you he's going to be low-owned. A.J. Brown against Houston. No shadow coverage from Lattimore in this one. And there's no Julio. There's no Henry. Imagine the amount of targets this guy's going to get against a defense that's, come on, this is Houston. They're 11-point favorites, and unless you see Foreman and Peterson carrying the rock and just destroying them on the ground, then they're going to have to get points through the air. There are no options unless there may be one other one than A.J. Brown. We'll get to that in a little later. But A.J. Brown's one, and then in the Cleveland game, 27.5 points. Okay? You have to monitor Chubb because I saw as of Thursday, he's still on the COVID list. So you want to go back to Dearness Chalkson. That's an option. One of these games, Landry's going to have 8-9 catches. I'm telling you, he's only 5,100. Just like I said, 28 points. Someone's scoring in these games. So if you need to find some players, they should be on those two teams.
Yeah, no, we agree with you for sure. I don't know who we is. Me and the invisible person to my right, we agree with you.
What do you mean? I got 15 personalities hanging out in here. Yeah, of course.
I was going to say me and Dearness Chalkson agree with you. Yeah, man. AJ, the more you mentioned AJ right before we went on air, and then the more I started looking into it, reading about it, I think people are going to be a little scared because of the spread. But my God, what an eruption spot this could be for AJ Brown. The Texans giving up 30 points a game, a lot of points to quarterbacks and receivers. Yeah, God. And people, I think just because the Titans are coming off the Rams and the Saints, so I think people are going to be a little bit off that passing game right now.
Yeah. Yep. And if you want to do a secondary, Cook 6,000, he's always going to get his looks.
I like AJ Brown.
Didn't mean to sound like a poet
like
there.
It. And then, so the other thing is, I think Foreman though is fine at 4,900. You got a mini revenge spot against his team that drafted him. He's clearly like they like feeding him the ball when the game's at hand. So I'm just saying, if you want to get a little different from that mid-tier chalk, Foreman will be there for you. It's an option. He's leading in snaps, touches, total yards, catches, all that shit right now. So,
did you see anything about that Cleveland game?
Yeah, Cleveland. I mean, Chubb would be the most interesting spot to me if he's going to play, but we obviously don't know if he's going to play.
I mean, against Detroit, could it also be? I mean, you know what? I was about to say. I'm not even going to say it. Like taking like Baker with two of the receivers, they're all cheap.
You can't go.
I know.
Trevor Simeon's playing better than Baker.
Yeah,
but I will say,
the other me stopped me.
I think Swift's interesting because I think he's going to get completely lost through the cracks. Dan Campbell's taking over play calling duties there. He somehow runs even more than Anthony Lynn.
Bet you he doesn't because these people, the people who just they can't get his good performances out of their head. They just can't.
I think you're right. Let me look at ownership. Right.
Gary, here's one thing about me. I may not know all the percentages with varying things. I know the majority of people, and they're assholes. They're idiots. Not you brilliant individuals listening to this show. I'm talking about that guy who sees the commercial. He sees the dude from Boston with the backwards hat winning the millionaire saying, hey, that could be me. I know what that guy's clicking. I know what that guy with his Chase card in his wallet,
who likes
the number 2 at McDonald's. I know your average idiot.
Here's the thing, and this is what's crazy to me. Like, he's actually projecting as the highest owned of like that 7K and up tier right now, like 18%. But what's crazy to me about that is, and maybe it's because he is the cheapest of those guys, is again, if you just put your head down and try to construct some lineups, it's hard to get those expensive running backs in this week. So I'm shocked that he's like McCaffrey, we have at 14%. Cooks around 10 or whatever. I'm just shocked to see Swift be all the way that high on the road in Cleveland, but I kind of get it. But I guess, yeah, if he's going to be chalk, then I'll go elsewhere.
One last game. This is a passion project for me. Like in the movies, when you work a movie that nobody ever heard of and because you wanted to do it, after you do Star Wars, you do your passion. My passion project for this week would be this Raiders Cincinnati game. Cincinnati looked poor before the bye, lost a couple games. Now they went to the bye. You had the Raiders who looked brutal in a primetime spot. That's always the call for me with either betting or in fantasy. And this game, the last couple weeks I talked about it. You look at some games and, whoa, this could go either way. This could be a 17-14, or this can be a 40-30. This is one of those games. And I honestly think the Packers is one of those games. There have been many of those games these last couple of weeks where it can be the spot that if you invest in, it could make it, or it can kind of screw you. I think there's something about this game here. So if you're looking at, Gary doesn't like the mid-tier quarterbacks, but what about somebody like Burrow when you can double stack him with Higgins for like 55, Boyd for 49, and even Chase is 7,000. Or if you don't even want to do the stacks, Hunter Renfrow, he's as automatic as there is since Ruggs has been gone, because I told you Carr is the second coming of Phillip Rivers. He wants as many checkdowns as possible. Renfrow is the extension of a checkdown. You have Mixon, who's going to be, I guarantee you, see, it's the opposite of Swift. People, for whatever reason, they never he was not high in people's heads beforehand, and I guarantee you he's still not high in people's heads, especially at that price. So you put someone like, how about Waller? That guy hasn't had a good week in a hell of a long time. There are many pieces that you can wiggle into this game, and I think this could be one that makes more lineups than it breaks.
Yeah, it's a good call. You definitely talked me more into this game than I was before we came on today. I'm not going for it with primaries. I just think that your quarterback, it's the same thing that happened last week, and Dak ended up being the perfect quarterback. Allen was right there as well. I'm 90% sure the perfect quarterback's coming from that top tier. So I'm right at that 90% range.
I don't disagree.
So I
don't disagree.
I just don't want to, the way I am, I keep my quarterback pool very tight. I keep my player pool tight. I don't want to go there for game stacks, but love it for secondaries. I think Mixon is one of the best spots we can get this week. The Raiders have not been so good against the ground. Mixon has been really consistent the second half, or like one of his, his last 3 games. He scored 28 points before the bye. The week before that, we saw him stay on the field on passing downs. Now for 2 straight weeks, he has 10 targets to combine between his last 2 games. And, they're going to funnel a lot of their offense through him here, I believe. So I like Mixon on the other side of Renfrow, on the other side of Waller. Here's my thing with Higgins. Higgins' advanced metrics, and this is why he's going to compete being such chalk, are there. Because, everything's telling you it's been fluky that he hasn't had these huge games. He had a 15-target game. He's getting all these red zone looks, blah, blah, blah. Yet he hasn't scored over 13 points or whatever since week 2. So at 5,400, though, people are going to keep going there. He's going to be one of the 5 most owned receivers again. Now, it could end up being good chalk, but I would just say know that he's going to be very highly owned.
I'm not...
And then,
I'm kind of with you.
But Chase, Chase, we haven't seen now one of those Jamar Chase games in a couple weeks. So, we're 2 weeks separate. He had a 37 against Baltimore. I think he could do it against the Raiders. So,
of course.
For sure. So, I'm with you. Good game to look at. Really interesting game to look at.
Last thing, and just to mention, because I don't want to, if and when it does happen, I'll be livid at myself if I didn't just mention it. Just like I said, no different than those teams playing poor. You have 2 teams who were absolutely dreadful in the Seahawks, who legitimately got shut out, and Arizona, who embarrassed themselves at home. Something tells me, Murray might play in this one. All I'm saying is I guarantee you Seattle, that might be my Men's Warehouse guarantee. Seattle looks a whole hell of a lot better. That's not really a guarantee. They did nothing. You're going to see players be productive in that game from Seattle. They're not just throwing a full dud at home after an embarrassing week like that. Same type of thing with Arizona. Arizona needs to win these games. Arizona loses one more game. You're starting to look at the now they're in a wild card. They have the tiebreaker over they need to win these games. So you're going to see players in these games putting up points, whether you want to take Lockett at 6,000 or you want to take Metcalf at 6,700 or any variety of guys. This could be like San Fran and Arizona 2 weeks ago, where all of a sudden people didn't really invest in it, and that's what made people's lineups.
I'll give you the plays in this game. It's pretty simple. I'm not going game stacks, but I think there's really interesting plays. DK Metcalf. Shout out to my boy and yours. We've been making fun of this guy for seemingly 8 years, but Mike Clay from ESPN writes
No, Mike Clay from Pleasantville, the movie.
He does it. The one thing I really look at from his every week is the cornerback wide receiver matchups column. He really breaks down where we see shadow reports, things like that. Metcalf is going to be on this Cardinals 4th-round rookie, Macro Wilson, apparently. Like, they spend the same time I'm out on the field. That guy stinks. And he shadows. So he's Metcalf coming off, the ejection, not having had a big games in a couple weeks with Geno, and now Russ was rusty last week. I think you're going to get Metcalf sub 7K with no ownership in a good matchup with real explosion potential. I might be talking myself into him as a men's warehouse pick right now. I love this so much. So, give me DK this week. Love DK. And then I really think that mixed in with that AJ Dillon, James Conner this week, the Seahawks run defense has been just putrid all year. He still has that backfield to his own. People are going to look at it last week and say, he was so chalky, didn't hit the ceiling. He still kind of fell into the end zone. But if you're going to even get it like under 15, 16% on Conner at 6,100, again, in a really good matchup, I think those are the two places I'm looking.
I just want to thank you very much, Mike Clay, for that. You're an old school nerd. You're a cool nerd, the old school way, where, if you saw me do something at a party, you wouldn't rat me out because you're a cool nerd. So thank you for providing everything that you do. We really do appreciate it. Yeah. You have some of the most funny, awkward pictures in the whole industry, and Gary and I just send them to each other when we need a laugh.
It's all love, though.
What was that? Of course, I really do like the guy.
Yeah.
So was that enough to convince yourself to put DK Metcalf as your men's warehouse pick of the week?
Yeah, I'm going to do it as a 1B just because he doesn't appear in my lineup. So I will put him down. He's on the board. Maybe he's like the shoes and cufflinks and studs. All right.
Okay.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He's the accessories. He's filling out the rest of the outfit. But
why don't you give us your 1A? Yeah. Give us your actual suit.
My 1A. So Metcalf's the one that's not going to get, I think, too much looks. This guy will get a lot of look, but not compared to some of the other guys in this game, and that's Travis Kelce. Listen, it's been a while since I've given you guys just an easy lay it up. We're getting 25 points. Let's get the layup in. We're taking the easy bucket, and I think that's Kelce this week. I mentioned the reason I like him over a hill from an ownership perspective, from a matchup perspective. And, unless that game busts, which of course there's a chance, I think Kelce's the most surefire thing to hit his floor, and then obviously his ceiling's in play. So I like Travis Kelce.
Me and you, we have a bad history of putting some sort of wacky hex on our men's warehouse picks, especially at tight end. Last week, you say Freiermuth, and then obviously it doesn't apply when Roethlisberger has like the random Friday night, thrown on the COVID list. I said Kittle a couple weeks back, then all of a sudden an injury comes out of nowhere and he's out for weeks. You said Waller a couple weeks ago, and then something happened at the Saturday practice. Not good for tight ends and men's warehouse for us, which is why I'm going with a tight end, Darren Waller. we gotta do it. We got to do it. To say he's due is really the understatement of the century. They don't have great passing options. I saw that Edwards has one of the worst percentages in the league in terms of separation and getting open. He loves Renfro and all those short underneath routes, but what about those 20, 30-yard gains? This has got to be one of those spots. Waller's got to go over 100 and get a touchdown. Darren Waller is my men's warehouse pick of the week. You're going to love the way our tight ends look, along with the DK Metcalf shoes and cufflinks. I guarantee it.
Yeah, man, it's a good tight end spend up spot. Like, we'd even talk about George Kittle against Jacksonville. I think James Robinson's interesting too. So there's a secondary stack I like a lot. So there tight end. I think, and Gesicki I already talked about. I like that game. I think the spend up tight end week is here for sure.
So my lineup starts with Dak Prescott. The yardage prop on both quarterbacks is over 300 for the game. One's at, I think Mahomes is like 312, and even Dak is at like 305. So if you're telling me that the professionals have them over the Draftkings bonus, give me the guy who I know less people will be taking.
Sure.
And that's going to be Dak. I've ripped on Gary in the past. Come on, man. Stop trusting Heineke against, the Chiefs. This is not Heineke.
No.
This is Dak with his full complement of weapons back.
Absolutely.
I'm going to pair him. I told you, this is one of my strategies. When there's a big game, I try to get money out the side door. I don't go down the pipe and take the Tyreek Hills and the most. I want to get somehow the points without having to show face at any of the main tables, So I got Dak with both Gallup and Schultz. That's my double stack. No Cooper, no Lamb. And I know, like, it'd be great if I could afford Lamb, and I know he could separate me from the pack like he did last week. But at least he went off last week, and in my mind, maybe there will be a little extra shifted focus towards him. So you have Gallup and Schultz, and then going the other way, I'm going to go with Williams, the running back, because I couldn't get Kelsey or Hill. You know, if this was crazy, maybe I'd do a little Pringle, which would give me even more money at other places. So I got, Dak with Gallup and Schultz, Williams going the other way. Then I'm going with Mixon as the one high-priced running back. And then on the other side of that, Hunter Renfrow, who has an extremely high floor in my opinion. Like I said, Carr is the second coming of Phillip Rivers, checks everything down. He's starting the game with 5 catches. Maybe you can work your way up to 9. And I do think that game's going to be one of these weird, it's going to start, it potentially can go over. Now comes the full dark. I got bad news and then I got good news. You need to find a scrub in here somewhere. So give me Johnson from Tennessee, who, if to be believed, established himself as the second receiver last week. We talked about Nico Collins many times. They are double-digit favorites and have one of the highest projected point totals. Yes, tons going to go to A.J. Brown and the running backs, but if you're telling me this receiver is going to be on the field the majority of the snaps, and he costs $3,500, I'm floating him out there. He's a solo floater. Now, that's the bad news. Here's the good news. Christian McCaffrey.
Nice.
Along with the Panthers defense, which I think has a nice little reinvigoration going against Washington, who just won their Super Bowl last week. And they're home. So I got those 2 high-priced running backs. How many other lineups are able to do a double stack from the highest scoring game with a run back and then have 2 of the highest priced running backs on the slate? Nobody.
No one.
And that is my thought with this tournament lineup.
I like it, man. I like it. And you know, you're going to get very, very different that way. And it's so funny. I was just smiling a lot because I was thinking about going with my Dak lineup that I built out also, just to kind of see which of our strategies go head to head at it. But we have so much layover. And you pick. You want to go head to head with Dak, or do you want me to pick another quarterback?
No, let's do that thing. When I used to play my friends in NHL, we used to take the same exact team. Because you can't have any excuses.
So here we go.
No, you had Yager. No. Then we're going Yager versus Yager.
This is going to be fascinating because basically the difference here is going to be McCaffrey versus the spend up spots that I'm taking, because we have a couple of the other same guys. All right. So I got Dak to Lamb. We talked about Lamb. Okay. Double bring back. Kelsey Pringle. Okay. So skinny to double bring back.
Oh, this is very different.
Very different. But then we got Mixon to Renfrow. All right. I go Gaskin as my other running back, 5,700. And then I also got Marcus Johnson. So we talk, Marcus Johnson is, and I knew we were just going to wait to talk about him because I figured he'd be in one of our lineups. I don't think he's going to get too highly owned, but it's actually not just last week. It's every week that Julio's been out, he has had the second most snaps for receiver. It's just that last week so you've seen those 5 targets games. So week 8, 5 targets. Week 5 targets. Those were the weeks Julio wasn't playing, I think. Don't hold me to that, but I'm pretty sure.
What do you mean? He leaves every game.
Yeah, but like that was like straight up out in the game plan. So last week he goes 5 for 100 on 6 targets. Again, Tennessee, if they're going to cover that spread, it's going to have to score points. If you can't get A.J. Brown in, I think it's a good idea to get Marcus Johnson in. And then in my other lineup that I was going to do with you, I had a Mahomes, I had a Marcus Johnson Cooks secondary stack. I think that works a lot too if you can squeeze that in. So that's really my lineup. And then I'm just completely punting defense. So I got the Lions D if I'm not touching any part of that game. Baker's been so bad that I just hoping for a pick 6. That's really it. So Prescott to Lamb. So there you go with the double bring back in Kelsey and Pringle. Mixon, Gaskin, Renfrow, Marcus Johnson, and the Lions D.
This week has a wide range of outcomes. You know how you talk about the players' wide range of outcomes when you pick a certain player or a stack or a game? This week, you can't tell me that Josh Jacobs ain't going to have 120 and 2 touchdowns against Cincinnati. Look what freaking the Browns did to him a couple weeks back. There are so many players that can be the guy this week that I guess you just got to do the best you can with it and run.
Yeah, it's going to be the range of outcomes is very wide as far as like which of these games are going to really hit. Then again, like I would be surprised if this wasn't a high scoring week, and really I'd be surprised if it wasn't a stars and scrubs week also. So if it is a more balanced, that'd be great. I mean, I'm gonna between now and Sunday, I'm gonna keep looking for ways to get different from the field because again, the cash, meaning like the straight up lineups, like the cash lineups are pretty clear. I think. There's going to be these very clear crystal plays with like the Connors and AJ Dillons and then either Dak or Mahomes and one of those top guys. Everyone that plays cash lineups is going to be doing that. The mid-tier running backs, the expensive quarterback receiver stack, and then, going to fill in with mid-tier receivers with probably one cheap guy like a Marcus Johnson or, whatever it may be. So it's going to be that way throughout. Look for ways to get different because it's never that straightforward. There's still 12 games. It's not a small slate. So.
All right, cool, man. All right, well, everybody, thank you. Hopefully we provided you, with the necessary insight because I've determined that I'm not a chalk guy. I hate chalk because in my opinion, either you have the chalk and then when a big play happens, you separate yourself from nobody, or that guy goes dry and now you fell behind everybody. It's just a lose-lose proposition. And after years of deliberation, for me, this was a chicken and the egg. Wait, is chalk good, chalk bad? For me, I hate chalk. And that concludes week 11 of Look Who's Chalking. Thank you so much for everybody for coming back. Hopefully, this weekend treats us all well. We'll see which Dak stack works out better between the both of us. And good luck to you all. Less so to Gary, who doesn't need any more than he already has.
Fair enough. Good luck. Keep your ear to the ground with news, man. Ramondre Stevenson's can always pop up on Sunday morning, okay? Like we'll try to guide you to the right place to be, but news happens. Pat Freiermuth happens. Ramondre Stevenson happens. Things happen. You don't be playing too much money if you're not ready to be in tune to the news. That's all. That's
and
awesome.
Please, I'm not kidding. Do me a favor. Text somebody you know. Share these episodes because I'm telling you, what is it? Week 11. You got 6 to 7 left, and I'm retiring unless you guys do some work for us. And I know what you're thinking, like, oh, what am I gonna do? No, this is the time where we really need every single listener to get it out to a few people. Yeah, if we had thousands, go ahead, be a lazy rat bastard and don't do anything. But in order to get it to that level, we need every single person who is enjoying this because apparently there's a good amount of you. You let us know that you've been, enjoying the show and whatnot. But we gotta help get this thing a little bit bigger. Okay?
Yeah, we'd appreciate it.
So if you can do
Please
that,
tell a
we'd
friend,
really appreciate it.
Subscribe,
right?
rate,
and
review.
then we'll answer more of your questions, okay? If you want to learn, how I went on those hot streaks with the girls when I was out at the bars, I'll tell you. Just ask the questions, stay engaged, and we'll appreciate it.
And if you want to hear about how I never went on hot streaks when I was single at the bar with girls, you can hear about that too.
Man.
Nothing's changed with me between college and now. I was sitting in my dorm room writing notes about Lamar Miller or whoever it may be. So.
Yep, my go out lineup had a lot of flakes and a lot of flames. I was hot, cold. I could never really, build that millionaire winning lineup. All right, everybody, take it easy. Have a good one, and we will see you next week.
Good luck in week 11.